Welcome to Carpe Dime, a podcast about personal finance and everyday life. I'm Jamie Davidson.
And I'm Nicole Jackson from Financial Center First Credit Union. Thanks for spending your free time listening to us talk about how life and family affects us achieving our financial goals.
Nicole, didn't you get a car recently?
I did.
When did you get it?
It was a couple months ago.
A couple months ago, you had a good one. So did I. I was back, earlier in the year, about 9 months ago. So, which takes us about what we're going to talk about today. Buying a car, right? If you're in that wonderful position where you want to buy a car,
need to buy a car.
Did you need to? Yeah.
Yeah.
I did too. Mine was totaled out. So yeah, and sometimes it can be fun. Sometimes it's not so much fun. Today we're going to try to come up with some ways to make it so it's easier for you when you go buy the car.
This podcast is brought to you by eHarmony, the dating app to find someone you can be yourself with. Why doesn't eHarmony allow copy and paste in first messages? Because you are unique, and your conversations should reflect that. eHarmony wants you to find someone who will get you. How are you going to know who gets you if people send you the same generic conversation starters they message everyone else? Conversations that actually help you get to know each other. Imagine that. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up today.
So knowing Nicole, she probably found some facts for us. You find us some facts?
So the first one, in the last quarter of 2022, the average rate on a 5-year new car loan for a credit union was 4.74%, according to the NCUA. At banks, that same interest rate was about 5.53%. So if you were borrowing about $30,000 for a car, you were going to save some money with the credit union.
See, I like that. That's why you should always come to a credit union when you have questions about your finances, because we're going to save you a little bit of money. So always remember that. If you bank at a bank, it's okay, but always check the credit union for maybe a lower rate.
Use your resources.
The
next one I have is Americans in their 30s and 40s took out the largest amount of auto loans in the third quarter of 2022 again, according to the New York Fed, borrowing $43.4 billion and $43 billion respectively.
That's crazy.
Isn't it? I mean, and they found out too that those in their 50s borrowed about $7 billion less, followed by young adults we're saying those are 18 to 29-year-olds, borrowed $29 billion. And the older generations borrowing the least.
All right, so let's talk about this. What is an auto loan? As I'm looking at this, and every time we do these, I always think about my kids, their 20s, because, that's when they start going through all the adult things in life that we've tried to teach them about, and sometimes it sticks, but sometimes it doesn't really stick until it happens. So today we're going to talk about auto loans. So, what is an auto loan? Tell me if I was one of my kids, what is an auto loan, Nicole?
An auto loan, by definition, is money that you borrow from a lender that you use to pay for a vehicle.
Okay.
Generally, you'll pay that loan in fixed installments, and you set the period ahead of time with interest accruing as your time goes on.
Okay. Yeah, and they come in various types, right? There's a few different ways. Obviously, if you buy a car with cash, that's the best way to go sometimes, right? But if you don't have the cash, you got to get that auto loan, which we're talking about right now. So, one of those ways is dealer financing. So you bought a car, right? Car. Did you get it at a dealer?
We ended up going with a dealer.
Okay. Yeah, I think what's really important here is if you go to a dealership to buy a car and you're going to look into dealer financing, make sure you're paying attention. When they have you sign a piece of paper, that usually means they're going to pull your credit, which is great because they're going to try to find you the best rate, which means they're going to be going to various lending sources. Different banks, different credit unions, maybe even the manufacturer is offering those discounts right now, or the APRs on that as far as the loan. But be careful, because sometimes they might pull that credit more than once. I don't know has that ever happened to you before in the past?
I think that's why I'm a little bit leery about waiting to go to the dealer.
Right, because you go, what just happened, right?
Right.
So you didn't use a dealer financing, but you used a dealership, right?
Exactly.
So how did you finance your car? Cash?
I actually went to the credit union.
Okay, so you can go to the credit union and get a loan, right? Okay, so that's the second way, is going to the bank or the credit union. So you used our credit union, which I did as well. Why? Besides because we worked there, why did you use the credit union though?
I used the credit union because I realized that, they were only going to pull the credit once. I would be able to work with someone that I knew, figure out exactly what I could afford, what was reasonable before I even started doing the shop around process.
It's and I feel like, you have your advocate there because usually if you're at the credit union, you're probably doing other business with them, and it's just not a one-off. So something I was going to talk about here, because we're talking about dealer financing, we're talking about credit union financing. One of the things a lot of people don't understand is they'll go to the dealership and they'll get offered mechanical breakdown insurance, or what's called a warranty.
Right.
And they'll get offered gap insurance, which is the gap between the cost of the car and what it's worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people don't realize that you can get those at your credit union or your bank as well.
Right.
And the thing is, it's usually a lot less money. So if you came to us, your warranty's based on the car, but a lot of times our warranties are probably anywhere between 25 to 50% less than they are if you go to the finance it with the dealership and get it through the dealership.
Have you ever covered a carpet stain with a rug? Ignored a leaky faucet? Pretended your half-painted living room is supposed to look like that? Well, you're not alone. We've all got unfinished home projects. But there's an easier way. Thumbtack is the app that makes it easier to care for your home. Pull out your phone and in just a few taps, search, chat, and book highly rated pros right in your neighborhood. Download Thumbtack and start caring for your home the easier way.
Did you get a warranty?
It came with my loan.
There you go. Just went right in there.
It sure did.
So before you start shopping, there's some terms you need to understand, because I always call it shop talk, and we just sort of throw those things around. And I think to myself, I think every average day person, like I said, my daughters, they probably don't know what these things mean. So let's talk about some of those terms before we go out shopping. So what's your first one we came up with, Nicole?
Well, the first one that I think, you want to start with is your rates versus an APR.
Okay.
So basically your rate is your interest rate, where it's the annual fee the lender will assess to the money that you're borrowing. So if you have a high credit score and you're doing a shorter term, you'll generally end up having a lower interest rate.
Right. And I think the thing about that is, remember this, your interest rates are going to be based on your credit score. So the higher the credit score, the lower the rate. The lower the credit score, the higher the rate.
Yeah.
And what's an APR?
Well, the APR is the total borrowing cost of the loan. That includes the interest rate and other fees. So it's kind of like the all-inclusive number.
All-inclusive, okay, yeah. So yeah, be aware of that when you talk about interest rates and APR, because a lot of times you'll see them pop up, and I've had people ask me that question, what's the difference? Mm-hmm. So thanks for clarifying that. Another thing you want to think about before you start shopping is this idea of a down payment. Should we put money down on this?
Always.
Always put money down. So down payment is basically money you're going to take to buy the car. You're going to, instead of borrowing the whole amount you're borrowing, instead of borrowing the whole purchase price, you're actually going to put some cash down so that you're not borrowing as much. That way you're not paying as much money on your monthly payment. Down payment's another term you need to know. What's the next one?
The loan term is essentially your repayment period.
Oh, okay. So when it comes to that, what did you get?
I think we did 5 year.
Which is 60 months.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of times we as people talk years, and when they talk about lending terms, they usually talk in terms of months,
It's
right?
like a parent talking about their baby.
Until they hit 18 months old.
24-month-old. No, it's 2 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
2 years.
Okay. So yeah, be aware of that. A lot of times what you'll see is when you're purchasing an automobile, one of the ways they're going to lower your payment is they're going to extend that term. So be wary of that. Stick to your guns and say, I only want a 5-year loan, which is 60 months. They'll extend it to 72. They're even doing 84 right now.
Yeah.
And a few people are doing 96. Now the problem with that is, folks, the majority of us in America don't keep our cars that long.
Right.
So you're going to end up being what's called upside down in your automobile, and you're going to actually owe more on than it's worth. So be careful of that.
So that's probably another term that we probably upside down. Upside down is when you owe more than what you have. Is that right?
You owe more than the value.
Okay.
So if the value on the car is 15, but you owe 20,000, we call that the gap, or you're upside down. Because if you told the car, they're only going to give you 15 for it, but you owe on the loan 20, because you extended it so long to lower your payments. So be very wary of that. So yeah. We've done down payment, we've done loan term, we threw an upside down. Principal, there's the next one. So, we are in a position right now where auto loan rates are up. They are what they are. If you bought an automobile 2 years ago, the rates were low. Principal is the amount that you borrow to purchase a vehicle minus interest and the fees. A lot of times when we're thinking about that, it's more important to try to pay that down quicker, the principal, get it paid off. That way you're not paying on that interest for so long.
Right.
So a lot of times I'll tell people, hey, if your car payment's $300 and you have an extra $50, put it towards that because it's going to pay the principal down. So the car's going to be paid off faster. You're going to be paying less in interest.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about this. You bought a car. Why'd you buy a car?
I bought a car because there are 4 of us in our family and we all go in different directions all the time. Okay. So realistically, getting around in one car.
You needed an extra car. You only had one at the time. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, me, total mine. So I needed to get a new car and it took a while. So whatever the reason is, whether you need it because things have changed and you need a second car or you've told your car, you know what, you're just driving around in a busted up car and there's just too many repairs and you decide, hey, I want a new car. How are you going to get that auto loan? So what do you do first?
Do your homework.
What does that mean?
Well, you start with the basics, such as knowing what your credit score is, knowing what your current financial situation looks like, and have an understanding of what your budget actually is and what you can realistically afford. Not what you can get approved for,
right.
What you can afford.
And what you can afford is very important because I can tell you right now, they'll try to give you every dollar they can.
Oh, yeah. Because the more you have, the more you can spend with them and the bigger their end of the day balances.
So you're doing your homework, so maybe you get an idea what your credit score is, right?
Yep.
Make sure you're going to hopefully have a good rate. See what the rates are out there. This is where you said you use your resources, right?
Right.
Your resources was you went to the credit union to find out before you went in, right?
Absolutely.
So you go in to get pre-approved. You say, this is the car I'm looking at. This is the VIN number. This is how much I want to borrow. And they'll run the numbers before they do the loan to see if you're going to qualify for that. Remember, once you sign a piece of paper to get the loan, that's when your numbers are going to get pulled and you're going to get told yes or no for sure. So pre-approved is a great one. Not only is it a great one to have, that way when you go to the dealership and they try to upsell you on something, you say, no, I'm pre-approved for this and this all I want to spend.
Right.
Of course, the dealership's going to say to you, well, that's okay. We can get your lending here. Be wary of that because that's how they get more money off of you.
What if for some reason you don't get pre-approved for the amount that you wanted for it? Is there any way that you can kind of...
Well, that's where discipline has to come in. There's a reason why you didn't get pre-approved. Or the other answer is they might ask you for a cosigner. A lot of times, that happened with me when I was young. A lot of times when you go out and you get your first auto loan, when you're young, they're going to ask for a cosigner. I will tell you this. If you're going to co-sign for somebody, be very careful who you're doing it for. Have the conversation beforehand. I've seen a lot of people get in trouble because they co-sign for a person and that person doesn't pay the car payment, and that affects their credit score. So be very careful with that. What else should you do, you think?
Shopper.
Always shop around, yeah. Give yourself a little bit more leeway on what you're looking for. You say, okay, I need an SUV. It doesn't have to be, this SUV. It can be this one or that one, or if it's a van, it doesn't have to be the Honda. It can be the Toyota, or it can be the Ford or the Chevy. Or you got to be willing to sort of give and take a little bit. When it comes to automobiles, I probably wouldn't get caught up on the color too much. But that's just my opinion on that.
When you're getting pre-approved and you're giving them a VIN number, how can you shop around if you've already established what it is that you're wanting them to give you?
Because you're not actually doing the loan yet. They're showing you what you're approved for, so they can just pop in that VIN number.
Oh.
So because you haven't actually applied for the loan yet, they're saying this is it. You're pre-approved up to X amount of dollars, and then they can just put that number in there.
Got it.
It's time to make the deal.
It's so scary.
I know, right?
It is.
It's time to make the deal. It's time to actually get the purchase agreement. It's time to call your insurance company because you have to have insurance with your car. Make sure you're getting insurance. Once you do your paper, make sure you're getting your title work done. And you know what? I guess it's time to drive home and hopefully everything works well and you're happy. I got my car and 3 months later I had to get $1,200 work done on it. So make sure you're doing your homework like you said. Avoid being rushed too when you're doing that. When you're signing that paperwork and read everything you sign, make sure everything you're doing is on the up and up. That's why we say go to the credit union because we're going to be there for you. I always joke, and we have people that we work with that are car salesmen, and they're good people. But sort of with car salesmen, once the sell is done, they're on to sell the next car.
Oh, yeah, they're not going to talk to you about.
They're not the finance person. You got to go to the finance person. So whereas if you do it at the credit union, you've got the person you dealt with and you got to ask your questions. So, I mean, I hope this helps you guys when it comes time to go out there and make that purchase for the car. Remember, I always say this about cars, and I say it about buying a house. Got to remove the emotion a little bit, which I know is hard to do. So try not to get too emotionally attached because it can cost you a lot of money, and that's not what you want to do, right?
Right. You want to drive fast.
Want to drive fast. Don't tell your insurance guy.
Oops.
Carpe Dime is presented by Financial Center First Credit Union. It's produced by Jamie Davidson and Nicole Jackson.
Financial Center is an 8-time national award winner in the category of adult financial literacy, and our goal is to what, Jamie?
Help improve your financial life. To learn more, visit us at fcfcu.com.
Like what you hear? Subscribe to us on Google, iTunes, SoundCloud, the All Indiana Podcast Network, and Spotify.
Thank you for listening, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Nicole.